So, David, what is it? What is fascinating us about your story? What is fascinating us is the following. What we hear from many clients and prospective clients is the following. Guys, I find your unbossing inspiration fantastic. But unfortunately, in my business, it would never work. Believe me. I have experience of 20 years in my sector. Everything has to be top quality. We cannot deal with variations in the outcome. So guys, I wish you much success in unbossing the next fancy startup and maybe an advertising agency. Much success, guys, but not in my business.
Yeah.
And now, David, to be very, very honest, the amount of time we used already your videos, you won't believe it. Because you know where I'm getting to, David, eh? Because if you can unboss a nuclear submarine,
right,
you can unboss everything. And that's just the sentence which we use.
Yeah, thanks. So go ahead.
Yeah, David, I know you have told that story already a million times, and I just discussed it with Nick. But please, we need it also on the podcast. Could you please shortly tell us the story of Captain Marquet, who was forced to unboss a nuclear submarine?
In other words, David, the first 5 minutes of the podcast, we will leave you in your comfort zone, telling your story again, and then I'll come up with the tough questions.
Okay, good. Well, look, I sort of was, I felt like Thomas, when you were telling your story, that was sort of my story. As I came up through the ranks in the Navy, and it was always about telling people what to do. And the model, the way I picture this model is like this. So we said, hey, am I supposed to know my job? Yes. And do I tell people what to do? Yes. So my job as a leader is to make decisions. I do the thinking, they do the doing. And I was very good at doing this. And this is the place where I wanted to be in this matrix. And because I was so good at telling people what to do, they made me a submarine commander. So here I am getting ready to take over on my submarine. But here's the wrinkle. I wasn't supposed to go to this submarine. I was supposed to go to a different submarine. I'd never been on a submarine as new as this one. The reason I was going there was because the crew had the lowest morale and the worst performance. And the previous captain quit early. And so there was no one set to take his place. And they said, hey, Marquet, you go Santa Fe. And when I walked on board, like in the control room, I understood how everything should work. And I understood the theory, but I didn't understand the specific buttons that you would have to push to make the submarine go. But we had this habit. Okay, I'm supposed to know the answers and I'm supposed to give all the orders because I'm the submarine captain. And the crew wanted me to tell them what to do. It wasn't like it was forced. They wanted me to tell them what to do. And I gave some orders. And on the very first day, I gave orders that didn't make sense. No one got hurt, fortunately, but they just didn't make sense. And my instinct, and the officers would order it anyway. This was the scary part. And so my instinct was to say, oh, no, you need to speak up. You be empowered. You be proactive. You tell me if you think it's wrong. You guys are all messed up. I'm fine. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, but I need you guys to change. I'd heard the speech many times. And as I was giving it, it struck me as false. It struck me as hypocrisy. It struck me as not taking responsibility for what I needed to do and what I could control, which was my own language. And so I changed the whole thinking and I said, okay, here, how about this? How about we change this? How about I talk to you guys in a way that it makes it easy for you guys to take initiative, you guys to be proactive, and never put you in a position where you have to tell me I'm wrong, because that's hard to tell your boss you're wrong. And sometimes we see it and we say, oh, look, my team has that behavior, but you know what? Probably 9, for everyone you saw, there were 9 times people thought you were wrong. They just didn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so my thing was never give an order. I said, well, how about this, guys? They knew I was trained for a different submarine. And they knew they were on the worst performing submarine. And I said, are you guys ready to try something different? They said, sure. Why not? You can't get worse. I said, well, how about this? How about I never give an order? And they're like, what? You're the captain. I've never seen that. How's that? What's that look like? I said, well, the way it looks like is you come to me and you just say, here's what I intend to do. I intend to load torpedoes tomorrow. I intend to submerge the submarine in 5 minutes. But that's not the whole thing. You got to say, hey, here's why it's safe. All the personnel are below. We've shut the hatches. I've checked the water depth. I intend to submerge the submarine. But also, why are we doing that? How does it support the mission? And then we'd have these conversations. But there were 2 things that were really, really important about this. Number one, the conversations always started with the team coming to me. Rarely, I would say, hey, what's the plan with the torpedoes? We're changing missions from one kind of a mission to a different kind of a mission. I know that we need a different kind of setup in the torpedo room, but it doesn't seem like the team is acting on that information. So I might have to prompt them, but I always tried to let them come up with the answer, let them see. And then the second thing, so it always initiated with the team. And people use this phrase, oh, lean in. They say, well, who are you leaning into? Oh, I lean into my team. Oh, well, that's just like horrible. You're just telling them what to do and they're telling the next people what to do. And it's stressful. It doesn't work. I viewed myself as leaning back so my team could lean into me. So number one is the initiative comes from below. Number 2 is that the conversation happens before the action, before the event. We talk about submerging the ship before we submerge the ship. This is why saying, oh, no, I'm going to empower you guys, just do it. This is not a good idea. Because now it's too late. We've already made the mistake. We already put the product out there. Now I have to have feedback because it already happened. So what we would always say is invite feedback before the event, because that makes it stronger and less likely of making the problem. I don't want to be really good at giving people feedback after they've had problems. I want to be really good at not having problems. So the image that we use a lot of times, people think empowerment's like a light switch. Oh, I'll tell you, no, flip. No, you tell me. No, and the problem with this is too scary. And so you don't want that. What you want is something more like this, where we say, okay, I'm going to give you more and more authority. And I'm going to say, what do you see? What do you think? What would you do if you were me? What would you like permission to do? And then, and here's the magic spot. What do you intend to do? The reason that's magic is because with permission, the answer is no, unless you hear yes from everybody.
Mm-hmm.
This is a way to design organizations to make sure nothing ever happens, because it's just really hard to get a bunch of people to say yes. You might not even get on the schedule. I can't even get a meeting with the CEO. So when Thomas is the CEO of the sugar company, people are out there waiting to do things because they're trying to meet with the CEO. So
right.
yeah, and we feel good, but we have this nagging sense this is not really very good because they don't. So with intent, hey, this is what I intend to do. I type an email, Captain, most of our conversations just happen face to face in the control room, where the officers would just say, Captain, I intend to submerge the ship. Here's why, blah, blah, blah. They're very quick like that because we're all together. But in a business, a lot of these happen on email. The email goes out, not just to the boss, not just to one person, but to everybody who cares. Hey, next week, we intend to launch the new product. Here's the testing we've done. Here's the market. Help us. Like, we're interested in ideas that the product's not ready. Or what are we missing? Or is there a feature? Or should we delay launch? Or even if none of those things are the case, now you know, and you can prepare. The salespeople can prepare. The marketing people can prepare. Operations can prepare for having a new product out there all ahead of time. And it's magic because ownership then comes from within.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have become convinced that we're all sort of programmed by the Industrial Revolution, and we are talking to each other as if we're running this organization here, where this person over here is telling all of these people what to do. And our organizations don't look like this anymore, but the words that we use at work are the exact same words that these people would have used at work.
Thomas, the one thing that strikes me was I don't want to be good at feedback. I want to be good at not having problems. Yeah. And the way to get there is to create space for dialogue in a group, in a team, before you start acting. And David, you cannot imagine how many times we repeat that message when we are working with customers, trying to support them on their journey to shift from command and control, and say, like, guys, the first 2-3 months, just talk, just dialogue, just talk about what you intend to do. And more often than not, David, the feedback that we get is, yeah, that's all good, but when are we start doing it? You know, when we do we go into action? Do you hear what I'm saying? Can you relate with that?
Yeah. So I think when we say start talking, we invite people to start talking in a very specific way, which is observation and description. Mm-hmm. What we'll say is, when you're shifting from, okay, I'll tell you to you tell me, the first step is, I just need you to tell me more of how you see the problem. You're closer to the work than I am. So I would ask questions like, well, what do you see that I don't see? What do you know about this that I don't know? Or how does the team see it? Tell me more about it. You were with the customer the other day. How do they see? And the reason we always start with observation and description is because, first of all, it's a learnable skill. And secondly, it's safe. It doesn't feel scary for me to say, oh yeah, when I told them about it, the customer's face kind of went like this, and they seemed a little bit bummed out. Okay, well, tell me more about that. I mean, I wasn't at the meeting. You saw the reaction. And I'm not going to you and say, well, what should we do about it? That's scary, because I can be wrong. I can pick now you're making me make a decision, which is emotional. You're just asking me to tell you about it. And we always start there. We always start with description. And then we say, well, what do you think? How did this happen? What came before this? What's causing this? What's the root cause? And then we go to, so if you were me, what would you do? So it's this graduated process.
Yeah, and David, I mean, I obviously I fully agree, and I also see this process takes I mean, you have to take your time with that specific person to ask those questions and to listen to the answers.
Yeah.
And what we often see in many organizations is that the more uh, up you go in the hierarchical chain, the less time leaders have to talk with people. Like, it's okay, we have 15 minutes. So, and in these 15 minutes, we have to have a decision on what we're going to do, which makes it really hard to ask those questions and have an in-depth dialogue, right?
Yeah, in multiple ways. Number one is when you put time pressure on people, you're impairing their ability to do deep thinking in the prefrontal cortex. So you're handicapping them right there. And then secondly is it doesn't need to take that long. So for example, in this model, my journey took me through these quadrants, but I saw how powerful it was when I stopped telling my team what to do, even when I thought I knew the answer. The point is not to know the answer. The point is to know the answer and resist the urge to tell them what to do. That's the hard part.
Oh, so true. Yeah. The joy,
you
joys
know
and
it.
pains.
You know it.
Oh, yes, I do. Oh, yes, I do. And they do it in a way, and that's the crucial, and that's suffering. If they do it in a way, David, another way, like you would have done it yourself, right? You know, you see them doing it in another way, and you resist this urge. But guys, Nick, David, you both are so relaxed at this moment. And guys, we are talking about a captain of a US nuclear submarine who refused to give orders. Please, Nick, can you let that sink in again? Because I'm still falling from my chair. And well, because you are talking about it, Nick, in such a relaxed way, as if it's the most normal thing in the world. For me, I still can't believe it. And I would like to know, David, how did your people look at you, as if you come from Mars or what?
Yeah.
And I guess there were not only the euphoric believers who embraced you and kissed you and said, David, finally, you have this realization. So how did you convince, or how did they convince themselves of that what you are proposing here or what you are doing here makes some sense?
Yeah, it actually wasn't quite as big a jump. It's from a psychological basis, it was huge. But we were operating in a permission-based environment. The officers tended to come to me and say, I'd like permission to do this. I'd like permission to submerge the submarine. Request permission to submerge the submarine. And I just said, look, just tell me what you intend to do. So I didn't try and convince people it was the right thing to do. I just said, just use these other words. and some of the people got it right away, and they were just like, oh, here's what I intend to do, here's why I'm doing, here's what I intend to do, here's why I'm. Some people were like, yeah, I'll have to watch and see how this goes. But remember, it was the worst. People were walking around like zombies. It was horrible. It was so sad to go on board the submarine. They thought they were so. They weren't nearly as bad as they thought they were, but the morale was really, really in the dumps. And when I said, so first of all, I didn't fire anybody, because as soon as I fired one guy, I knew this sends the message, you're the problem. And I said, you guys are not the problem. The problem is you're putting in the structure where we are over privileging doing at the expense of thinking. You've been trained your whole careers to do what you're told, not necessarily think. We got to flip the whole thing to thinking now. But here's the key. At one point, we're going to shift from thinking to doing. And that's the point when we say, commence starting the reactor, commence loading the torpedo. Now we open the book and we go page by page, A, B, C, D, and we do that with precise compliance on the procedure. But beforehand, and where we say, okay, when, why, what team are we going to use? And then afterwards, how do we do? Did we achieve what we were trying to do? How are we going to make it better next time? That's where the thinking wraps around the doing parts.
All right, thank you very
Right.
much. Now, David, you also used here a very specific expression, namely the wordings, the words you used. And we know from your videos that, just as an example, when you switched from talking about they didn't come through with their part. They
Yeah.
made a mistake. We are waiting for them. When you were switching to we, that was a pivotal moment. And maybe you could talk a bit about this importance of the words being used. Why? Because we see that every day in the corporate world, they once against we.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. So first of all, this is the story. I like to tell it with this story. So we're doing firefighting training, and fires, of course, is a very big deal on a submarine because you can't escape. There's 0 fire exits, and we have to put on this equipment. We have equipment here where it sees through the smoke, and it's a infrared thermal imager. We have these backpacks, and so when we start the exercise, we start a timer, and we measure how long it takes for the team to show up like this, and then they have a hose to attack the fire. And we were not doing very good by the times that we needed to. And we get together afterwards, like I say, an agile team would do. We do a retrospective, and we say, how did it go? And that kind of thing. And I kept hearing this day, like they didn't change the batteries when they were done last time. So it was dead. They didn't untangle the equipment. So I had to spend 30 seconds straightening everything. They didn't recharge the bottle. So I had to go grab whatever it was. They. Now on a submarine, it's a crazy thing to say because the bunks are stacked up like this. So I'm saying like that person who lives like, I could go like this, bang, bang, bang. I'm beating on the bottom of your bed, but I refer to you as they. Oh, why? Because, oh, you're an officer, I'm enlisted. Oh, I'm a chief, you're an officer, or I'm in engineering and you're an operator. So that's they. Now, when you say they, what happens? When you say the word they, it tells your brain that person is in a different tribe.
Yeah.
Not in my tribe. Be careful about trusting that person. When you and anyway, I got upset. So I beat the table and I said, "There's no they on Santa Fe." I was very upset.
Yeah.
I just said, "You can't say the word they anymore. You can say the word they when you were talking about people back in the Pentagon, but not for anyone on board the submarine." So that's going to be we. So people would say, well, we ordered the wrong part. Well, we didn't square away the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first thing that happens is there's no blame. There's no, because now you're saying we did it.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. So the second thing, though, is when you say the word we, what does it tell your brain? Oh, this person, I'm referring to them as we. And so therefore they're in my tribe. I can trust them. And I feel like we're moving, like we're moving together, like two people walking down a path together, not sitting across the table from each other, we're pointing fingers at each other. So our brains actually changed. And it was the habit of using the word we, which resulted in us feeling like we were one big team, one big tribe. Not me putting up posters about be one big tribe, or me even talking about being on one, or even have a culture of collaboration, whatever words you want to use. None of that happened. We simply practiced
posters. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I find that just amazing, and especially this sentence, what you're saying. The moment you say they, you train your own brain to say they are from another tribe, they are not to be trusted. It's amazing. I immediately get it. I heard it from you for the first time in a video. Now I hear it again, and I will use that and hammer on that without end, David, because This is happening as we speak, a million times in every corporate environment.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know about you guys, Thomas and Nick, but I have a lot of fun because when I start with an organization, you can hear them talking ahead of time, and maybe there's a call ahead of time, or you watch them in a meeting, and I'm just listening. And so the people in engineering are talking about operations or the people in operations are talking about marketing. And so I'm hearing all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, I see how it is. Because that's where the team ends. Like engineering will think, oh, we're software engineers. We're the cream of the crop. Look how much we get paid. They are the big problem.
Exactly. And now that we're switching to your the chapter in your life, David, where you're trying to use your experience of the Santa Fe to inspire others. I'm very curious to that because obviously, well, you had both a crisis on the Santa Fe as well as your internal beliefs that triggered you to do things differently. Now you tried for several years to inspire other organizations to go on the same journey. And I was just wondering, what are your biggest insights and also disappointments that you've experienced in that new chapter with regards to your experience on your own submarine?
So number one is we're all the same. I've done events in India, China, London, New York, LA, Silicon Valley, all over the world. And over again, tech companies, construction companies, finance companies, military, organization, policing, whatever, and nonprofits. And some people will say, oh, well, we're different. Okay, in this culture, blah, or in the sugar industry, blah, or in financial services, blah. And then when I started asking them, well, okay, tell me about, like, what do your people do? What do you care about? What do they want with their lives? It's all the same. People want a job that matters, and they want having purpose by itself doesn't help anybody. You need a strong purpose and the ability to do something about it. So you need to have some amount of authority to move. If you're just a cog like these people are, it doesn't matter whether this company is making windmills or nuclear bombs, because there's no ownership here. They're not thinking, they're not making decisions. They're just doing what they're told. So they can make whatever they want. I don't even care what I'm making.
Yeah.
But when we give people the ability to make decisions, that's the biggest health change. It's like telling people what to do is like smoking a pack of cigarettes a day in terms of your health. It's bad for you and it's bad for them. And so we've had amazing stories. First of all, Nick, the other thing is I never think of it as inspiring anybody. Humans are inspired. No one ever came to us and said, well, convince us this is the right way to do it. Like, fine, I don't care. Like, if you don't fundamentally believe that your people want to do good things, that they have the ability to think and they see things that you don't see, I can't help you. All of our clients,
love it.
Yeah, like Thomas, like all of our clients believe that we'll be happier, we'll be richer, we'll make more money, we'll have better products, the customers will be happier if I let the people closer to the work make more decisions about it. Mm-hmm. And my life will be better because I don't run around and check on everyone all the time because they're checking on themselves. So if you don't fundamentally believe that, don't call me. It's not going to work. So we're in a fortunate position where we don't really sell anything. it's the people who already believe it. He say, hey, give me some help, maybe give me a inspirational story that I can believe I'm not alone on this journey. Folks, you are not alone. You're on the right path. It will feel lonely. There's a lot of things that are pushing against us. Human nature, tradition, the way it's been done, old white guys like me who still like to be in control, like people lined outside their desk, outside their door, waiting for hear the word.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot that goes against us. The education system is one of them. But in general, not in general, it's the right way to treat human beings, to treat them as thinking animals as opposed to just machines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's amazing. And Nick,
100%.
just one parallel.
Yeah.
David just said he works only with believers, and he works with these believers on the question of how. And whose mission is exactly the same, ours. Isn't that amazing?
I agree, Thomas, and I also like the fact that David mentions that a lot of things are working against us, even if we have the belief, human nature or scholar system, and that's exactly what we see. I mean, we are so conditioned to how it used to be that even though we truly believe, we have that fundamental belief, we have to let go a lot of old convictions about how it's supposed to be in order to manifest what we believe. And so therefore my question would be, David, did you as a human being and a leader as a human being personally develop and grow through your journey on your own submarine and also afterwards? Was it also a personal transformation for yourself?
Yeah, 100%. Because I had to. So now, first of all, I'm focusing on my behavior. So if someone comes up to me and they say, Captain, I intend to surface the submarine in 1 hour. And in my head, my immediate thought is, we don't want to do that. That's wrong. Why would we do that? And my programming, and it's just habits. I just believe we talk the way we learned from our parents and high school and grade school, and that's just how we talk. We don't realize there's a different way to talk and interact. And
Exactly.
so one of the ways that we like to talk is that we like to ask binary questions. So a yes, no question. Are you sure? And is it safe? Is the COVID vaccine safe? These binary questions make no sense, because is the COVID vaccine safe is not a question that you can answer. It puts a person in a box. It's a coercion. Mm-hmm. So if they believe you should take the COVID vaccine, they'll say yes. If they believe you shouldn't take a COVID vaccine, then they'll say no. But that doesn't answer the question. They're answering the question, are you going to get a COVID vaccine or not? Not the question, is it safe? Because the question, is it safe, doesn't make any sense. The question, how safe is it? So our thing is, I had to train myself over and over again, start the question with the word how. How safe is it? How sure are you? Are you sure? Like, oh, you're making me take responsibility for predicting the future. Hey, I think the client's upset. We ought to do this. Are you sure? You're making me predict the future. I can't predict the future. I said, well, I'm 60% sure. Hey, I think that's not the target. I don't think that's an enemy ship. I think that's a cruise ship. Are you sure? Well, no, but I just thought it was important enough to say that. And so I had to keep training myself to ask questions in a way, because I say, well, are you sure? No, don't worry about it. Never mind. Okay. Then that's how you shoot the wrong people. So over and over and over again, I had to retrain myself how to ask questions, how to stay quiet, how to start with just simply observe. Hey, what do you see? Like over and over again, people come to me. So, Captain, I got a problem with this pump. What should I do? Oh, tell me more about that. I mean, that was my favorite thing to say. And I gave my team, we had this game where I gave them like football referee yellow cards. And I said, hey, if I tell you guys what to do, you get to yellow card me. So, because I'm trying not to tell you guys what to do.
Fantastic.
Cool. Thomas,
Just what?
can I, you're going to hate me for
no, don't tell me we're already at the time limit, Nick.
No, not
it.
at all. But you're going to hate me for the question I'm going to ask. I'm just warning you. David, I can imagine that being a captain in the uniform with all these gold medals, that's a real ego booster, you know, being the decisive leader.
Yeah.
What did it do to you to become, shall I say, one of the least important persons, you know, the one who, what did that do to you, to your ego of no longer being the guy who knew everything?
Yeah, so that's interesting. The book I'm working on right now is about ego. It's about ego defense.
And why is it about ego?
Because I think people don't understand what ego does to them and how it hurts them. Or maybe they understand how it hurts them. It prevents them from learning. It prevents them from admitting they don't know. It prevents them from being vulnerable. It prevents them from forgiving. It hurts relationships, and ultimately it hurts your happiness. And the way I thought about it, there's two things here. Number one is my dream job was to be a submarine commander. I didn't care about anything after that. So I wasn't trying to prove anything to anybody. I just wanted to be the best submarine commander that I could be. My focus was on the people and our mission. So I call it care, don't care. Care deeply and passionately about the people and the mission, but don't care about how I present to my boss. Or am I looking good? I don't deliberately sabotage that, but that's just not, it wasn't a thing that caused me to do anything one way or the other. It was irrelevant. And the second thing is, up to this point, I always felt like in American football, we have a quarterback who's sort of the head of the team, looks at the defense, calls plays, or sometimes the coach sends the play in, but the quarterback is the one who's doing the call. But the quarterback also gets sacked, gets hit, and I always viewed myself as I'm the quarterback for my life. I call the plays, I say, okay, now I'm going to be funny, or now I'm going to go to a party, or now I'm going to get this job, or now I'm going to interact with this person. So I would decide, I would deploy my players, which were my knowledge, skills, and abilities to make things happen in the world. The problem is when the quarterback gets sacked, this is when your ego comes up, because your ego wants to get back at that person. Your ego is stuck in the past. And then I would say, what would the coach say? The coach doesn't care about that. The coach didn't get hit. Coach looks out in the field and says, oh, David took a beating there. But the coach then very immediately says, what are we going to do with the next 8 minutes of the game? Because the coach is not stuck in the past. The coach is looking to the future. And so now I think, there are moments when you want to be the quarterback. You want to be in the moment. You're riding a cycling race and you're riding 20, 25 miles an hour, 2 inches behind the wheel of the person in front of you. You need to be paying attention. But for a lot of things, when you feel, oh, well, I'm worried about my boss saying this, or I'm worried about people will think I'm not smart, or any of those sort of social things, I find it better to think of yourself as the coach. And I would say, what would the coach do? And I would say, what would the coach want David to do now? And I'd be talking about myself in third person like that, to myself. What's the coach going to tell me now? And the coach is going to say, you know, get over it. Focus on the future. The future is what matters. This happened. Do they mean to do it? I don't know. But what difference does it make?
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't, oh, you diss me, I'm going to get back. And don't, like, that's your ego, which is your ego is the immune system for yourself. It is not you. It is simply an immune system, which is supposed to identify threats and then muster defenses against them. But the problem is your ego was designed to identify threats running around the plains of Africa where there were real threats like lions and things that were going to run you over and eat you. So the ego tends to identify threats that aren't really there. You ever walk up to people who are talking, you kind of walk up and they just sort of stop talking and look at you. They're like, oh man, they were talking bad about me. Like, yeah, maybe not. Your ego said, no, they were talking bad about me. And then, so it magnifies the threats that it sees, and it sees threats that aren't really there. And so you're in charge. The coach will say, yeah, don't worry about it, move on. David, and that's a better way to live your life.
Yeah. I know one person who already ordered 1,000 copies of this book, your next one, to distribute to all our clients. And it's the name of the person is Nick. He's just with us in the podcast.
Yeah.
So I know this email to Amazon went already out, Nick. I know you well enough.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas, for giving me the space to ask that question.
I wait about 2 years. I'm still. I could show you my office. I have all these books piled up that I need to be, like these books, and then the books behind the camera. You can't see them, but over here.
Oh, wow.
Where are they? All that's all about my my ego project. All right, guys.
The biggest bottleneck, David, it's the biggest bottleneck between what we're doing today and the real potential that we have.
It is for you as an individual.
Ego.
It is for me.
Yeah, it is.
I like, why don't I do this? Why don't I do that? Why don't I ask for help? Why don't I, forgive my parents?
Thomas, it's up to you, guy.
Yeah.
Let's ask you. What did you want to ask?
Is David ready for the question?
Yeah, the our famous final question.
Man. Give it to me right in the middle.
David, we ask every podcast guest the same final question. Go ahead, Thomas.
You're putting me under pressure. I hope I measure up.
I hope your ego doesn't get in the way.
My ego's starting to get worried right now.
David, I'm the CEO of a huge corporate, rather traditional corporate. And I have watched all your videos on YouTube. I listened to this podcast here. I have read your book. And I can only say, congratulations, David. You have reached it. You have convinced me. I'm a believer. I'm a believer 100%. And even better, David, I want to start today, now. I want to start.
Yeah.
And I only have one question to you. And the question is, what is the biggest mistake I can do, David? The single biggest mistake to make it fail despite all my good intentions?
I would say the biggest mistake is thinking that it's other people are the ones who need to change.
Oh, wow.
The biggest mistake is not realizing that the problem is you.
Yeah.
All the change has to happen with you. And first of all, it's great that you're the CEO, because when you change, everyone else will change. So don't say, oh, I really need you guys to speak up in meetings. In fact, never even say that. just run the meeting so that it's easier for people to speak up, especially if they have something unpleasant to tell the group. You really celebrate that stuff, or especially if it's about saying, hey, we don't know the answer to this. And I heard this term, actually it was a European company told me this term, watermelon leadership, or watermelon status meetings, which means it's everything's green, like you have these green stoplight charts, everything's green, but on the inside
it's all good.
red. Why? Because it's just dysfunctional. So the other thing is, so the way to start is when this COVID thing dies down and you start going back out to eat, see if you can get the server to choose for you what you're going to have, which I think is harder in Europe than it tends to be in the United States, my experience, because I've tried this all over the world. But the idea is the normal way things happen is I walk in and I say, hey, what looks good? And the server says, well, the chicken looks really good, but the fish looks good too. And I'll say, okay, great, I'll have the chicken. So I'm making the decision. So what I want you to do is push the authority to the person with the information, which is the server. So say, hey, I want you to pick, don't play it safe. Now, if you have peanut allergy, you should tell them. That's part of conveying clarity. But do that, think about how you react, and that will be your first step to becoming a leader who can empower and trust their people.
David, I can't tell you how much energy I got out of this 1 hour of podcast with you. Can't tell you. And I saw Nick's face when you said, biggest mistake, think the others have to change and don't look at you. I saw exactly the reaction on Nick's face.
Thomas, and you know why? Because I went through it myself. It was only when I started changing and really accepting the fact that it was me that needed to change, that I saw things around me changing as well. So I really, when David made that statement, it really like yeah, that's the essence of my personal journey as well, and my insights over that journey. So
and these are also, Nick, the biggest shock moments which we have, not for us, but for the CEOs we are talking to. Let's be clear, and the executive teams, when we come with that message. It's
although when we say that in the beginning of the journey, Thomas, they often say, hey, not too much self-reflection, please.
Yeah. Hey, you guys are great. I got a thing that starts in 1 minute though. I got to sign off and go to it.
Okay, no worries, David. Thanks you so much,
David.
Listeners.
Please,
best of luck to you guys.
Please, let's stay in contact, David. And one thing, we all know how important storytelling is, and you have the best story to offer globally, hands down.
Oh, well, thank you.
Cheers.
Congrats on that.
Bye-bye.